Hello, everybody, and welcome to our October, already can't believe it, RV Lifestyle and Repair Club question and answer. I'm Dave Solberg, your host, and we've had a pretty busy week. We shot, well, it was last week, I guess, Wednesday afternoon, Thursday, and Friday. We did a full-blown ultimate towing class, kind of coincide with the Ford towing boot camp. Ford has put together a boot camp that we did a couple of pilot tests, Dallas and Raleigh, and there's been a lot of excitement about it. We are going to Elkhart, Indiana on the 16th, 17th, and 18th. The first day is industry days. 17th and 18th is the consumer days. And it's a full-blown hands-on towing course. I'm going to do the seminar. It's an hour-long seminar, kind of give the basics of towing, some getting started. And then they have modules where you can go out and literally back up a truck, hook up a trailer, back the trailer up, take a driving course, make that right-hand turn. So we are very excited about it. We sold out all the slots available in Raleigh, and then they're going to launch it next year around the country. And so it was kind of interesting to do that. I see we don't have any questions yet. So one of the things, that a lot of questions from people in the seminars, what causes sway and how do I reduce it or prevent it? And so I set up a little demo. This is what you would typically have as your stinger on the back end of your truck, goes into receiver hitch. And this one is not torqued down, of course, so it's a little wobbly. But the reason we call it a stinger is that when you unhook your trailer and you walk around at night when it's dark and you hit your shin on this, it stings. So that's why I would call it a stinger. But the reason that you have sway is this is a typical ball connector from your truck. And I'm going to slide this on. There we go. So that's how it would be connected. And you see there's virtually nothing that is holding that from pivoting or swaying in there. So anytime we get a side wind that hits that, remember you're driving a billboard down the road. So anytime you get a side wind that hits that, it could start it to sway, you drop off a shoulder, uneven pavement, all that kind of stuff is really going to make it a challenge. And we set up a little demonstration. I'm going to move these. With a treadmill, and I just had this little piece here as a towing. Let me see if I can pop this on here. There we go. Now keep in mind we had this on a treadmill and it was rolling down the road, and so what we did is literally took a weight. Where is my weight at? I had it. Oh, I know where it's at. It's in a box, my Kurt box right here. There we go. So we just simulated. Now, what a lot of people say is you want to use the 60-40 rule. 60% of the weight should be in front of the front axles. 40% should be behind the back axles. Now that's on a typical cargo trailer that you would be able to move the weight back and forth. Keep in mind your traditional RV pretty much is you have fixed weights. You have the cabinets, you have the appliances, and then you only have certain compartments that you can put stuff in. So you really can't shift a whole lot. So what we typically recommend to do is go by 10% of the gross vehicle weight rating, or what your rig weighs, 10 to 15% on the hitch. If I go too heavy on the front end, then I'm going to have a really light front end here. My steering's going to be affected. My braking, 75% of my braking capabilities are these front disc brakes here. And then I'm going to have too much weight on the back end. So tires, brakes, axles, all that stuff. Now, one of the things that you'll really notice is that if I put the weight towards the back end of this, and this one's a little heavy on it, but you know, once I get into a wind, this is going to start to really sway. So the best thing to do is to try to get 10 to 15% on this weight. And how you do that is you go to a cat scale, which is at any Flying J or Pilot, or you know, almost any fuel station. Go to catscale.com, and then I'm going to do here what I like typically do, and we shot this video as well. What I like to do is go inside first of all and tell them I'm going to do a truck and a trailer, and I'm going to do two ways, one with the truck and the trailer on it. So I'm going to drive on here, and I'm going to have the front of the truck on the first pad, the back end of the truck on the second pad, and the trailer on the third pad. And what that's going to give me, axle weights, so I know I'm not going over the axle weight for the back end, especially here. It's going to give me what the GVWR of this trailer is, so I know I'm not going over the maximum trailer stuff. And then it's going to give me a combined weight rating. Then I'm going to take this off, and I'm going to weigh just the truck like this here. And what that's going to give me then is I'm going to be able to subtract that and find out we had 1,100 pounds on the truck and trailer we had. Doing the math on the Ford site, we only had about a 1,050 pound capacity on that hitch. So we were going to have to lighten that unit up somehow, maybe put some most of the cargo in the back to get that front end up in there. So by having 10 to 15%, I'm really going to reduce sway on this unit. I'm also not going to have an issue with braking, axles, tires, that type of stuff. And usually your fifth wheels are going to be a little bit more than that. But then I would recommend anything that goes over 4,000 pounds and maybe even a little bit lighter than that, you would want to go with a weight distribution and a sway hitch. And that one is the trailer I picked up, I think dry, it weighed 5,000 pounds. The trailer we used before was less than 4, and it was all over the road with the wind and the type of back roads we had, and without a sway bar and a weight distribution hitch. The other thing you get if I got too much weight, you know, more than 10% on that front tongue, or more than 15%, I'm going to start to get some highway hop as I go down the road. So those were the things that we were kind of working with in weight distribution. So I see Roger has a 2018 Thor Citation Mercedes motorhome, beige in color. Ongoing issue with the oxidation of fiberglass front and back. Have tried the Protect All that you suggested on the video. Also tried Meguiar's 3-in-1 compound with Meguiar's premium marine wax. Even higher detailer at $800 cost, and it only lasted a month. Any experience with Tune Bright clear coat? And I have not had experience with Tune Bright clear coat, but what I have found, so what's happening is you've got a fiberglass back cap. So your Mercedes is an automotive finish that's painted and waxed. Your truck, or your cab, excuse me, your motorhome portion of it then is a fiberglass, most likely Phylon, Chemlite. They've got several Noble, same company. They just got different glosses and different materials. So you've got the fiberglass is laid out in a sheet. It's chopped fiberglass with epoxy in it. And then it's going to have the colors inherent to that epoxy that's in there. And then it's going to put on layers of what's called a clear coat. And that makes it shiny. That's basically what's happening. So more than likely what's happening with yours is that you are getting oxidation on that clear coat, and it's starting to get foggy. You said oxidation on the fiberglass on the back. Now, if it's already started to get some oxidation on it, there's a couple things you can do. The Phylon recommends using the Meguiar's polish, and there's different levels that you can get to. There's a polish, and then there's a oxidation remover. And I believe the Meguiar's, this is the premium wax. Now, what they are recommending is the Meguiar's 50, which is the marine and RV wax. But before you do any of this stuff, what you need to do is get some kind of a, just so you see how the Meguiar's is spelled, you need to get a type of a polisher that is designed and a, pretty much a polishing pad. And if you go to crane.com, I believe it is, it will show you, but it's just the oxidation remover, Meguiar's. You can use other products. I've used Barkeeper's Friend, the paste. It's a pumice, and so it's going to have a little bit of a grit to that. So you really need to get that faded part of that clear coat off first, and then go to the Meguiar's, and I believe it's either 50 or 59. And but it's a marine and RV wax with a UV protection. The Protect All is, is something going to keep the UV protection. But if you've already got there, then the Protect Alls, you've got to get that top coat off. And you paid somebody $800 for a detailer, and I would say whatever they worked on and put onto it, it probably wasn't what was recommended. So check out the Meguiar stuff. Look at Phylon. They've got several PDFs that you have out or that are on their website on care and maintenance, and it gives each one of those products. In fact, let me do a real quick. I'm going to go open this up, and I will give you the actual new window. Let's do a Google search and do a Phylon fiberglass maintenance. No, that's not it. There we go. So Crane Composites, Forest River has one on their stuff here. Sealed restoring mild detergent. They recommend turtle wax rubbing compound, turtle wax polishing compound, the heavy duty stuff. So the rubbing compound, if you got some pretty heavy oxidation, you want to go with a rubbing compound. It's going to be a more aggressive type of a buffer, and use a mechanical buffer. And then, so that's what Crane says about that. I'm going to go back here. Fiberglass. Phylon, let's do Noble Chemlite. Sorry for the delay here. I'm just trying to get, my other computer has it all. Specs, references, tests. All right, let's get back into here. That's not what I want. Google.com, come on. There, wow. You know, it used to be so easy before AI got involved in all this stuff and puts all the junk that you see everywhere that's in here. So, and it was kind of funny. My dad saw a thing that said that Trump has allocated X amount of millions of dollars towards AI research, and my dad said, "Who's Al?" And we were like, "I'm not even going to say it." Okay, so I went in and found their, yeah, and it's very challenging to find it anymore with the Forest River Crane Composite, gel coat caulking. Okay, there we go. Restoration of glass. Materials used the McGuire's 39 heavy duty oxidation remover. 49, excuse me, 49. And then use the McGuire's number 50 boat and RV cleaner wax liquid. And then the McGuire's number 56 boat and RV pure wax and mechanical buffer. So that's the recommendation. If you go to Crane Composites, do a Google search for that. This one just happens to be Forest River, what they recommend through their Crane distributors. So, but hopefully that should help. And if anybody's heard of Tune Bright Clear Coat, I've also had some people that have used there's a Poly Bright, I believe it is, and say that works really well. I've always stayed with what Phylon has recommended. So Hank says, we've got a big cross-country trip planned, and I'm stressed about fuel stops. Between the size of the rig and not wanting to run out of the middle of nowhere, where's the smartest way to plan fuel stops on a long trip? I would say probably a Gas Buddy's a good thing to use. I know a lot of people that have used that. But I think one of the best trip planners is Trip Wizard by RV Life. They've got a variety of different programs that allow you to go in and do fuel stops. So you probably, if you got a big rig that looks like, want to stay within some of those larger pilots, Flying J's that you can get in and around. And, just keep in mind as you're pulling into those, always look for a way to get to the easiest place to get out. And sometimes, you get right up front and it looks good, but if somebody comes in and pins you in from going into the convenience portion of it, look and see where can I get out and around and away from some of that stuff. I think even the Trip Wizard will help with some of the pilots and Flying J's that have RV lanes now too. And those are a lot easier because you're not fighting all the trucks and, the diesel stuff there. So I would definitely look at that one for going across country. Robert says, I use the RV Parky to plan my trips. Love it. It shows fuel stops like Flying J and Pilot. Try to stop at a half a tank to avoid stress. And trip can be set up by miles per day, usually on a drive 300 miles a day, which usually ends up at about 6 hours with stops. And so I would say, there's quite a few programs out there, but that one looks like a good one as well as the Trip Wizard. So we're out of questions here again. So I'm going to go back to a couple of products that we featured in the towing class that I thought was pretty interesting. This is going back to, and I'm going to pull this off. So this is our typical setup. We would have the hitch on the truck or the trail, or even a motorhome pulling a car behind it. And since, we've got the peg that would go into here, and I don't have the one handy right here with me, but however, the problem you get with this is that you still get a lot of thunking, a lot of moving around and so forth with that. And this is a product that I got from Kurt, and it is just a hitch silencer or quiet hitch. And what this does is, I believe we go underneath. So one part of it goes underneath the Let's set up a little bit high here. There we go. So I believe this just goes underneath the hitch side. And then this would be out more. Where are we? There we are. Straight up right there. And then this could be adjusted. Oops, went a little too far with that. So this might need to go. And I would recommend playing with this a little bit before you, very first time you do it. I want to strip these threads. Looks like I've already done that. There we go. So the theory is you would go underneath this, bring it back over and clamp that on there. Like so. There we go. And I think maybe I got this one on the, I would have to go with the larger version of this. So the idea is that you would clamp this on, and this might not be the right type of a receiver hitch. Going to go out up like that. And the idea is that this is just going to go underneath and be able to clamp on the top of it. Yeah, we're going to have to do a little bit more research on that. I apologize to Kurt for that. There is one that is also from Blue Ox that is just a bolt-on style. But the idea is that the two of them will clamp these two together and completely eliminate that rattling. And, you know, I've tried it. We have a video, I believe, one of the Roadmaster products as well that we've had, you know, several years ago. So we're going to do a little bit of more research on that. We're going to post that. And because this one is one you should be able to do without tools. And so I think maybe I've got probably this is for one of the smaller hitches that's 1 1/4 inch and not the 2-inch shank. So we'll check on that a little later. Also, don't forget we have downloads, and I believe that if you look at the very top, and I think if we can have Jessica. Is Jessica on the backside here? Post that link. I don't see it anywhere here. And Robert said, "Where is our host?" I think, and that was at 4:26. So I think Robert we have been here. Where's our host? This is my first live chat. And maybe that one didn't come in right away. So, all right, let's do a product here that I know how to operate and work on here. This one is called the Echo by Kurt. And Kurt is one of the premier towing companies out there. They're owned by Lippert, and they send a bunch of product to us. And so the Kurt This is actually a wireless brake controller. So like my truck, it's a 2016 Chevy Silverado, and it did not come with the towing package, and I do not have a brake control module. So when I went to hook up this 5,000-pound camper, I do have the 7-pin, which is going to have one of the pins in there is designed for electronic feed to go back to the brakes of the trailer. But if I don't have a brake control module, it's not going to do anything. So this is a module. Instead of trying to rewire the whole thing inside, cut my dash up or put it down underneath where it's hard to get at, this is a wireless one. So I simply hook this into my 7-pin on the back side of my truck, and I can use this then to strap that on around the flap. It would have a similar flap to this here. So I'm going to strap that in there, and then I'm going to put my 7-pin in here. And what it does then, it allows me to bring up the app on my computer here, and let me pull up the so we're going to do Google search. We're going to do the Kurt Echo. App. So then it just brings up on my phone. It allows me to put in up to 3 vehicles and up to 3 different trailers. And you can see we were working on the Jayco trailer this last weekend, and I put that in here. So we're going to open this up, and we accept all that, and we accept all that, and we accept all that. So now I have, and since my Jayco is not hooked up, it senses that it's not here. This would be red to start with. But what it does is it allows me to put 50% or the sensitivity of number 5 on that brake controller. So I can do whatever, setting on that I want according to the weight of that brake. And then it does have a hazards light that it can turn. So I would hold this button then, and it would automatically apply the brakes as I applied my brakes. But, normally you would have the little lever on some of those. So this allows you to just put this in your holder, and then I can actually manually apply the brakes. So I don't have to add that third-party brake controller to this, cut holes in my dash or anything. I can just do everything Bluetooth, and then I can call my granddaughter and ask her how I get there. Because I am wirelessly challenged. Let's put it that way. All right. So do we have a few more questions here? I'm the moderator. Okay, free printable downloads, 5 fun activity sheets to take you on your next road trip. There's cooking, there's a variety of different things. So just make sure you go to that link that we have, the GoRVRepairClub.com backslash A22430. And so those are printable downloads that you can get. We don't have another question, so I'm going to go into another product that Kurt sent us this week, and that is right here. So typically you would have this as your front trailer. It's going to have what's called the jaw underneath here. And a lot of times these get gummed up, they get rusty, they really are hard to disconnect. A lot of times you go bring your trailer jack up and the whole back end of the truck comes with it because that hasn't quite loosened up. And Kurt has this new one here, and I'm going to bring this back up, that is called the Quick Pin, and they've got a straight A-frame and so forth. This just happens to be the A-frame one. And so what this does, instead of having that locking mechanism at the top of it, it will have this pin, very similar like the pin you would have here. So I go to put this on. I don't have to worry about trying to get the lock. Is it open? Is it back? You know, as I'm bringing the unit down. So it just comes in here, and then I simply run this through, pin it. I'm going to need to turn this around just a little bit. There we go. Put the large cotter key in. Kill it. And this is much easier to do when it's on the ground. I think I would put this in from this side here, just to not have to wrestle with everything. So now I've got that nice and locked on there. And again, it's a little loose because I have not torqued this nut down in here. But that makes a nice tight lock instead of having to fight that jaw and all that stuff. A lot less lubrication that's required out of it. If you see on the side here, if you want to get a close-up of these, just kind of shows what that looks like, how it's going to go through the side of it. This one happens to be for 2 5/16, so it's good up to 14,000 pounds, and it just makes a nice quick pin connection for your trailer rather than fighting all that other stuff. Easy to connect and disconnect. Okay. So Robert says, I see 14 online. Should I say on? So I guess you're looking over at the side of who's on or who's off over here. Bill says, how often should I get a full RV inspection done? And we see a lot more inspectors available out in the market today. There is a company down in Texas that's got a program that certifies them. I still think the RVIA technicians that go through the RVTI training program, level 1 and level 2 certification, are the best to go through. Those are normally working at dealerships, but we see this inspection company, and it's a step in the right direction. But I don't think you need a full inspection all the time. And what I recommend is that at least once a year, and typically 2 or 3 times a year, you want someone to inspect the seals, the front caps, any place you can get moisture. So if you look at a typical RV, let's just take this little sample here. The first thing I've got is roof to sidewall. That is a place where, and this is probably just as good, now this one's going to be a little different because it's a Winnebago. And what Winnebago has done is they wrap the entire fiberglass around this corner and they tuck it into the awning rail in here. So I have no sealant anywhere in here. I don't even have to worry about sealant here. What I want to make sure I do is have this flap. If you've got one that laps over like this, make sure that's inside of that awning rail or that extrusion here. Otherwise, you've got any amount of it starting to stick out a little bit like this. Wind's going to catch that. It's going to pull that up and could literally pull that whole thing off the top. So if you got anything out there, you need to get in and zip that back in. But traditionally, what you're going to see with a unit like this, and if you got a rubber membrane, you either have a rail at the top with that sealant on it, or it wraps around here with sealant on the side of it. So that is all going to be sealed with what's called, a couple different ones here. This is what Winnebago uses. It's the New Flex 311 RV. It's designed for fiberglass. This happens to be lap sealant that is Dicors, and both of these are self-leveling. And the reason you want that is because you want it to just ooze down and cover completely, nice and flat. So the front cap then is the second place that you want to look at, and you will have a J channel up here. You'll have clearance lights at the top. Anytime you have any roof vent opening like this, you're going to have sealant around it. So once a year, I recommend that somebody get up and inspect all those seals. Take a look at how well that they're holding up. They're going to expand and contract with temperature changes. You're going to get vibration as you go down the road. They could dry up. They could start to crack. They could literally pull away as they expand and contract. And if you have any opening in those sealants, you're going to get moisture down inside that. So all those need to be checked at least once a year. I usually like to do it in the spring and the fall. I'd like to do it in the fall before I'm putting it away for the winter, because I know that I'm going to get a lot of stuff in there. I'm a big fan of covering the unit during the winter if it's staying outside. And the air conditioner, then you do not have sealant in there. You've got a foam gasket. And then once a year, underneath that, there's 4 screws that are spring loaded. You want to go in and make sure those are nice and tight. They have a torque setting normally, but if it's just hand tight, for me, that's good enough. And what that's doing is it's compressing that seal, because if you don't do that, that seal is going to start to flatten. It's going to break down a little bit. Moisture is going to get in there, and it's going to start to rot that roof. You don't want to use the sealant in there because you get 2 drain holes on the sides that the condensation goes into that drip pan and then it's supposed to drain out. That's why you see that water dripping off the side when the air conditioner is running. You also want to make sure you have any sealants around the floor line. You've got a trim piece and then a sealant over or a cover piece over the top of it, and just a visual inspection of all that stuff. There's a variety of different things that you look at. I don't have to do a full inspection on appliances, but every appliance has got kind of a maintenance program that you would want to take a look at. Like your refrigerator. Once a year, I like to go in, and if I have an absorption refrigerator, I'm going to take that vent off the back side, like this one here, and I'm going to blow out all the orifice, the line that goes into the burner assembly. The more I use it on the LP, the more soot I'm going to get. There gets dust in there. There's a spider that likes the smell of propane. It will spin a web, clearing all that stuff in there. We've got videos on that to show you how to do that. Clear up the back of the flue. This is my roof vent for my refrigerator, and I'm going to take that off once a year. This should be it's a rectangular flue, comes out of the top with a screen over it, so critters don't get inside, but that can get those cotton balls and dust and lint and so forth. Just make sure all that is nice and open in there. I inspect my tires every time I hit the road. I make sure I check the pressure on them. I make sure I check the sidewall. If I'm going to store it for more than a couple days in sun, cover them up, because that will dry those out, and weather check them if you don't. And then you're going to have tire issues. Check the tread. Make sure the proper inflation in those tires. Check out some of our videos on those things. And so there isn't a full-blown inspection that's required every year, but if you identify the components that you have, how often should the refrigerator be maintained? How often should the water heater be maintained? Should be drained if you're going to store it in cold weather. Once a year, I like to just take a flush out valve, which I believe things kind of get thrown all over the place when we do video shoots. I grab all the stuff, then come back. But it's just a wand that you can get. It's called a flush wand. You hook it to the end of the hose. Once you put take the drain valve, the drain out, put that in there, and just flush all that stuff out, because the hole at the bottom of your water heater is not going to be at the very bottom. You're still going to have about 1.5 inches. That settles. It gets calcium, rust, lime inside there. And so, you want to get that out, because it's going to get skunky and it's going to fill up on the inside of it. So just identify the different components that you have. Put together a schedule of, this is what I should do in the wintertime before I put it in the storage. This was what I should do in the spring when I take it out. So that is something that I would do that. Nope, Angie found the toilet flush. That's not it. I think I know where it's at. Should be right here. All right. So Now this one happens to be, I've turned it into an air valve, you know, but I can also hook it up to water as well. And all it does, you hook it up to a water hose and it just stick it inside the valve and run it around and it will flush. There's a great one online. Campco has one. There is one that is a plastic tube that just pushes on to the valve. I'm not a big fan of that one. I have seen that one actually shoot out, and I think I have a copy. I got one of those somewhere. I'm gonna find that. There it is. So this is what it would look like with a garden hose end to the bottom of it. What I don't like about this one is the fact that there is not a real good seal there. Now this one's pretty tight, but I've had several people written in that said, I used this kind and this blew into the water tank, water heater tank. How do I get it out? And that's not an easy thing to do. You know, you pretty much have to get needle nose and try and fish it out. So I would get the one that literally screws on. Campco has a great one that many people are using. Okay. So John says, I've noticed black water dumping from my gray tank. Okay. So then John, well, he goes on to say, I leave the gray open all the time and keep the black tank closed until it's about 2/3 full before draining it. Then fill with water and drain and flush out the tank. Recently, I had to replace my hose, so I kept all tanks shut for about a week. I would always keep both tanks shut all the time. Because if you leave your gray water tank open, then black water goes down the same dump valve as the gray water goes down at a campground or, you know, wherever you're going to. So when you leave that gray water valve open, you get all those smells coming back up. You get the sewer flies, everything from the underground system. Leave the valve shut all the time. The black water is really important because if you leave the valve open on the black water, when you flush the toilet, solids will stay in the tank and the liquids will go. We call that pyramiding, and that's not a good thing. But if I don't know how you would get black water dumping from your gray water tank, because you've got separate tanks. Now, the toilet will be black water and the shower will be gray water. Individual sinks are going to go to whatever closest. So a lot of people think, well, you know, my kitchen sink, my bathroom sink, they should all go to the gray water because they're cleaner water. They don't. It depends on the logistics, the location, where they're at, and proximity to where those tanks are at. And sometimes you have 2 tanks, or you know, I don't think I've ever seen 3, maybe some of the bigger units, but you know, those black water is toilet, and the toilet should never go to the gray water tank. I don't know how it could, because it just comes down with sometimes a 45, sometimes just straight down from the toilet into the tank. There are some units where the toilet's one location, the black water's in another one, and they have what's called a grinder pump, which literally pushes the sewage to the black water tank over there. So if you verify that you're getting black water coming out of your gray, you got something pretty major wrong. You got a pipe somewhere that either was installed wrong. You didn't put what year it is. Okay, so I would verify. You know, I think maybe what you're getting out of that gray tank is some water coming from a kitchen or a faucet somewhere inside there, and your tank might be really dirty, but I don't know how you can get black water sewage into a gray water tank. And again, if you verify that it is, then you got to take it somewhere and have somebody basically get underneath. And again, I don't know if you got a travel trailer with an underbelly or, you know, what it is, but that is not a good thing. So I would I would venture to say you've got water, but it's just probably dirty. So then I would flush that out really well. There's a variety of different products out here. Freshwater tank. I would go with a tank blaster, holding tank cleaner. Do the black water tank and do the gray water tank. Just a packet of that stuck in there. Oop. There are a variety of other, some people use vinegar, some people use bleach, some people don't like bleach. This is one of the best ones that's out there, in my opinion. It's called Tank Blaster from Thetford. So Robert says, Bill, I do a self-inspection before and after each trip. A New York State inspection has to be done yearly on my motorhome. And so I think the New York State inspection, Robert, if I'm correct, I think it's more of an emissions inspection. I've not heard of any state that's requiring a full inspection of an RV. Every state's a little different. Iowa, we don't have emissions inspections that you have to do once a year. Colorado does. I know my father-in-law, we'd always have to take his two cars. He had an older Hudson, a couple older Hudsons that didn't have to do it because they were grandfathered in with the emissions. They didn't have it. So I would say that you probably check and see on that. Hugh says, we only use my water pump once a year when I winterize my Jayco Eagle fifth wheel. Do we need to do anything else to maintain it? The only thing I would recommend with the water pump is that you do have a screen coming in. It's a filter. And keep in mind, you're running a lot of, and even if you're only using it once a year, it's still coming up to that screen and bypassing. And so you could get some calcium rust, lime. And when you're pushing water through during the winterizing, you're still, even though you're running RV antifreeze in there. So I would just take that screen off once a year when you're doing your winterizing and just make sure it's nice and clean so it doesn't get grit. And because grit can get in and kind of tear apart the diaphragm inside of it. But other than that, there's not a whole lot of maintenance to a water pump. Robert said, don't miss the chance to get real-time answers is in the headings. Still not sure how this is supposed to work. I have been online for 52 minutes now and confused. And I'm pretty sure somebody might want to chime in. John, Hugh, I think we've been able to pretty much keep up. So Jessica said, sorry for the confusion. Dave is currently live streaming right now. There is a video at the top of this page to watch him, even if you have to push play in the video player. So I'm not really sure. We haven't had that problem beforehand, but again, I'm not the electronic expert on this. So Hugh says, our bedroom door won't stay open on its own. Is there something we can do to keep it from closing on its own? Also, what maintenance needs to be done with the Splendid washer dryer combo? So let's talk about the bedroom door first. It won't stay open on its own. It depends on if it's a slider or if it's a regular swing type door. If it's a swing type door, you can get the spring hinges that will allow you to put them on in the direction that it will keep the door open. If it's the slider, and that's a pretty common issue with the sliders, and I don't know if you're talking about when I'm assuming when you're driving down the road, or you're walking and it's maybe moving, because if you're stationary, you got your jacks down, you're stabilized, the door is open and it's actually swinging shut, then you got a hinge that's probably bent. So I would take a look at the hinges, and you can do some adjustment with those. Normally what happens is the weight of the door traveling down the road, they start to bend a little bit, and so the hinge gets just a little off. What I've done is put a 2x4 in between the door and the jamb, and sometimes just push that hinge back and give it a little bit of a wrench. Otherwise, you loosen up the, there's times where you can take, depending on the type of hinge, most doors in an RV don't have the pin in the hinge like you do in your residential homes. And the easy fix at home is take the pin out, position the door up, and you'll see where each one of the little knuckles, I call them, where the pin goes in is maybe off, and then you can bend them so they line up better, and that'll shut. But most of the time your door is going to be either a solid line hinge or a set of 3 smaller hinges that don't have the pin. And so then you just try shimming a couple of those hinges a little bit just to get them back in place. John says, Robert, did you press the play? So that, I guess that is it. So the second one, Hugh has a Splendid washer dryer control, and maintenance with those. I'm not familiar with the Splendid per se, although I do know that they don't like you running RV antifreeze through a lot of those. I don't know specifically on that model, but what you need to do is cycle that 2 or 3 times during the fall before you put it away, so you get all the water out of it. You disconnect the water hose from the back side of it. And but as far as maintenance, kind of like your home, there isn't a whole lot of maintenance required other than cleaning out the drum. Since it's a combo, you're going to run water through it first, probably hard water. Most of your campgrounds, unless you fill up a 100-gallon water tank with soft water from home, or you've got a portable Culligan, you're running some hard water through that thing, and that can get calcium rust and lime. So cleaning that drum out really well. I know that the seals have a tendency to get gummed up and harden and sometimes crack on that front cap piece. And there's generally a filter in the front or a clean out area. So those are the things that I would recommend for those. So I don't see any more questions. Robert, I do apologize if you weren't able to do live with us. Hopefully we can get that fixed. Take a look at, you can go back and take a look at the video. It is archived to be able to pull that up and to use it. And like I say, next 17th and 18th of October here, coming up in 2 weeks, I'll be in Elkhart, Indiana, at the Motorhome and RV Hall of Fame. We're going to have the Ford Towing Boot Camp. So if anybody's out in that area, you would like to do some hands-on, and it is truck and trailer. It is not motorhome. We're looking at how we expand that in the future, but starting off with truck and trailer, we will have, I believe there's going to be 6 trucks and 6 trailers to be able to do hands-on towing, backing up, right-hand turns, all the hard stuff. And Robert said, sorry, I did now. First time user. Did I miss the answer question? So if you look back through, Robert, you'll see you can click on it, fast forward through it, be able to go back in it. And I'm sorry we had some technical difficulty with that. I had technical difficulty with this. I'm going to do some research. Still learning every day. So with that, appreciate everybody coming out. Have a great rest of your week. It's been warm here. We hit almost 90 degrees today in northern Iowa, but the little bugs are out biting like crazy. So I am going to go out and get something to put on. But thank you for joining us. Appreciate it, and have a great time with your RV experience. Get